Good morning to all of you. Today we have with us Dr. Pramod Jha. He is the Principal Scientist, Division of Soil Chemistry and Fertility, Indian Institute of Soil Sciences, Bhopal. Sir would like to deliberate on the topic of soil carbon sequestration, challenges and opportunities. Sir, I handle control over to you. You may begin with the presentation. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you.
Sir, your video is off. You can show your video as well, or you can choose to record only audio only.
Okay, just a minute.
Sure, no problem. Yes, you are audible as well as visible. You can start the presentation, sir.
Okay, a very good morning to all of you. First of all, I am very much thankful to NADCL and particularly Dr. Suhail Ahmad for giving me this opportunity to share some of my experiences on soil carbon sequestration. Before I start my formal presentation, briefly I will like to introduce myself. I am working as principal scientist at ICR Indian Institute of Soil Science, Bhopal. I started my career in the year 2003 as a scientist from CSW CRTI Dehradun. Thereafter, I joined here at ISS Bhopal in the year 2009, and from the beginning of my career, I am working on soil carbon and different aspects related to soil carbon and nitrogen dynamics in different agro-ecosystems of the country. I did my graduation from Ranchi Agriculture College under Birsa Agriculture University, Ranchi. Then I did my master's and PhD from IARI New Delhi in the discipline of soil science and agriculture chemistry. So today we will be try to deliver something, unearth the soil carbon sequestration, what are the challenges before us and what are the opportunities. Before I start my presentation, I would like to explain what is soil carbon. If you take a sawdust and mix it into the soil, it is not a part of soil organic carbon. Anything to qualify as a soil organic carbon, it has to be either physically, chemically, or biologically stabilized in the soil system. So the next word is sequestration. The sequestration is the literal meaning of sequestration is to capture. To capture something. So soil carbon sequestration is basically capturing of carbon into the soil system. So this is nowadays this is one of the most important topic in the discipline of soil science research, and due to the changes in the our climate and all other factors, and also in terms of soil fertility point of view, soil carbon sequestration is one of the most challenging work in the field of soil science and agriculture chemistry. So today I'll be delivering my topic under the following heading. Definitely we will be exploring about the soil carbon sequestration. Then what is the role of soil carbon sequestration in climate change mitigation and what are the different global initiatives. Then briefly we will cover the 4 per mil concept. This is a newer concept, so I think we should be aware of that. Then I shall be discussing about the soil carbon saturation and what are the realistically achievable potential for carbon sequestration. Then what are the duration of soil carbon sequestration and the permanence of soil carbon sink. I will be leaving the aspect related to modeling and factors affecting modeling aspects because it needs separate class, because the time is allotted to me is only 1 hour. So I will be discussing mostly on what are the factors which are affecting the soil carbon sequestration, then what are the management options for carbon sequestration, and finally what we will be concluding. So now coming to the topic, what is soil carbon sequestration? You see, as I told you earlier, sequestration is basically the capturing of anything from anywhere. So carbon sequestration, when we say in soil science a carbon sequestration, that means we are capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by means of photosynthesis into the plant system. And finally, this plant carbon is getting stabilized into the soil system. So basically the carbon sequestration is the capturing of carbon which is present in the atmosphere into the soil system. So literally we define it, it is the transfer of atmospheric carbon dioxide into other pool with a longer mean residence time. Mean residence time means that if we left it, how much time it will take to completely disappear into the atmosphere. So having the higher mean residence time, greater will be the soil carbon sequestration benefit. So it is the transfer of atmospheric carbon dioxide into other pools with a longer mean residence time in such a manner that it is not re-emitted into the atmosphere in the near future. This is called carbon sequestration. So in agriculture, what we are doing, the carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere, by means of photosynthesis, we are capturing this carbon into the plant system. And finally, when the plant dies or the below ground biomass, you see there is a definite relationship between the above ground biomass and the below ground biomass. As a thumb rule, you can think of if you have 10 tons of above ground biomass, then around 2.5 tons is the below ground biomass. So when we say the biomass, biomass contains carbon, and the approximate percentage of carbon is present in the biomass is around 40 to 45%, depending upon the different crops. It varies from 40 to 45%. So whenever we are getting the higher above ground biomass, that means the below ground biomass in terms of root biomass, we are adding into the soil system. So slowly we are adding the carbon into the soil system, and slowly it is building up the carbon into the soil system. So when we talk about the carbon sequestration, it is the removing of carbon from the atmosphere and depositing into a reservoir. This reservoir could be anything.
Sorry,
Basically,
sir, to
there are
disturb.
three.
Sorry, sir, to disturb. Can you resume presentation? Somebody accidentally started sharing screen. Sorry to disturb.
Oh, oh,
You have to resume presentation in this meet. There would be option of resume presentation, resume sharing.
okay, okay, just a minute. Is it coming?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Start the slideshow.
Shall I start from the beginning or just I reach to these slides? So till now we have covered what is basically the soil carbon sequestration in nutshell. The carbon which is present in the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide by means of photosynthesis we are capturing into the plant system, and we know there is a definite biomass between the above ground biomass and the below ground biomass. So in a thumb rule, the 25% is the below ground biomass in comparison to the total above ground biomass. So if we are sequestering, if we are harvesting around 10 tons of biomass, that means around 2.5 tons of biomass we are sequestering into the in the form of carbon into the below ground biomass. And we know that the carbon content in the biomass is around 40 to 45%. So if we say, if we sequester around 2000 kg or 2.5 tons of below ground biomass, it means we are sequestering around, we are adding around 1000 kg of carbon into the soil system. So basically, these are the three main reservoirs of depositing of carbon into the different pools. The first one is the oceanic carbon, is the terrestrial or biological carbon sequestration. As an agriculturist, we are mainly concerned with the terrestrial or biological carbon sequestration. When we say terrestrial or biological carbon sequestration, it has got two terms. One is the soil carbon sequestration, another is the forest carbon sequestration. So next to the ocean, 75% of carbon pool is on the land. And you see on the land, it is mostly present in the form of soil organic matter. So anything to qualify as a soil organic matter, it has to be either physically, chemically, are biologically stabilized into the soil system. As I said in the beginning, that if you mix the sawdust into the soil system, it is not become a part of soil organic matter. So if it has to be physically, chemically or biologically stabilized into the soil system, then only we can say that it is a part of a soil organic matter. And you see why we are giving so much emphasis upon the soil carbon sequestration. When we talk about the soil, the entire nitrogen dynamics is governed by the soil organic matter. There is no mineral source of nitrogen into the soil system. So whatever the nitrogen we are getting in the soil, it is coming through 95 to 90. So building of soil organic carbon is very much important in terms of nitrogen availability. That's why in India sometimes we are showing the availability of nitrogen in terms of soil carbon ratio, such as low, medium, or high. So building of soil organic matter has got so many ancillary benefits. Some of the benefits are conserving soil and water. We are adding high amount of biomass. How you can improve the soil organic matter by causing minimal soil disturbance, as it is in the case of conservation agriculture. It will further improve the soil structure and then enhance the soil faunal activity as well as the amount of carbon sequestered into the soil system. So now coming to why, as I told you earlier, one of the wing of carbon sequestration is the forest or plant carbon sequestration. Another is the soil carbon sequestration. You see, when we are locking the carbon dioxide into the plant system, we are locking it for a period of more than 200, 300 years or up to the age of the plant. That means we are permanently capturing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and finally we are sequestering or we are capturing it into the form of plant biomass. So until the plant will die or again it will decompose, then only that the amount of carbon which is sequestered in the plant system, it will go back to the atmosphere. Now we will be talking about the soil carbon sequestration. Soil has got a tremendous capacity to store or to capture soil carbon. You can just think of in atmosphere, in the form of vegetation, in the entire globe, there is around 610 petagram of carbon is sequestered in the plant biomass. And around 700 petagram of carbon is present in the atmosphere. If you sum up these two carbon pools, one which is present in the atmosphere and another carbon which is present in the plant biomass, if you sum up these two things, it is coming around 13 to 1400 petagram of carbon. But do you know the 1 meter of soil can capture more than 1500 petagram of carbon? And if we consider the depth to up to 2 meters, then it is capturing or sequestering around 2300 petagram of carbon. So soil has got a tremendous capacity to store or to capture the carbon. So what is the purpose? Why we are so much interested in increasing the soil carbon sequestration? You see, there are obviously two reasons. One is the climate change mitigation. You see, there are three basically greenhouse gases which is present in the atmosphere. One is the carbon dioxide, another is the methane, and third is the nitrous oxide. When we say the global warming potential, the methane and nitrous oxide has 60 and around 300 times potential in comparison to carbon dioxide. But the contribution of carbon dioxide to the global warming potential is around 60%. That's why we are saying that if we will be able to nullify or we will be able to capture some amount of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, it will have a huge impact on the climate change. And second is the most obvious, what I told you, the soil quality improvement. If you improve the soil carbon by means of good agriculture practices, definitely your nitrogen dynamics will be improved. As I told you earlier, that around 95 to 98% of nitrogen is coming through the mineralization of soil organic matter. Around 15 to 80% of phosphorus availability is governed by soil organic matter. And similarly, around 60 to 80% of sulfur availability is also governed by the soil organic matter. Besides that, it has got so many ancillary benefits that it provides micronutrients, as well as it improves the water holding capacity of soil, aggregate stability, mean weight diameter of soil is increasing. So soil has so many benefits if we increase the soil carbon content. So now coming to why we are giving so much emphasis upon this carbon dioxide. You see, industrial revolution took place around 250 years back in UK as well as in the Western countries. So around 250 years ago, the carbon dioxide concentration was fairly low in the atmosphere. It was around 200 to 250 ppm, around 250 ppm. And when we measure the carbon dioxide concentration in the year 2016, it crossed the 400 mark. It means that in the last 250 years, the rate of increase in carbon dioxide concentration was only 31%. You see, in the last 250 years, it has increased only to the tune of 31%. But the problem is that now it is increasing at an alarming rate. It is now increasing at a rate of 0.4% every year. That means right now we have around 410 or 412 ppm of carbon. So every year we are, if we will increase 0.4% of carbon, that means around 1.6 to 2 ppm of carbon dioxide we are adding into the atmosphere. So in next 50 years, we will add another 100 ppm of carbon. So we will cross the threshold limit of around 450 to 500 ppm. So this is the problem. Now it is increasing at an alarming rate. The same is the case with the methane also. It has increased around 151 percentage from 1750, but now it is increasing at a rate of 0.4%. The same is the case with the nitrous oxide also. Now it is increasing at a rate of 0.25% every year. And the only good thing is that now the chlorofluorocarbon concentration is decreasing into the atmosphere due to the, since now it is CFC is not being used in any of the refrigeration work, so its concentration is decreasing into the atmosphere. So these are the major emitters of carbon dioxide in the entire globe. The most obvious is the China, then USA, also India, Japan, Russia, UK, and Germany. These are the major emitters of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Now coming to how the importance of carbon sequestration research came into the soil science. You see, Kyoto Protocol was signed in the year 1997 in Japan. Everyone must be aware of that Kyoto Protocol, and it was decided that every nation will reduce their fossil fuel emission by 5% below the 1990 level. In 1997, it was decided that every nation will reduce their fossil fuel emission by 5% below what it was present in the 1990 level. So, again the treaty was revised in the year 2001, and when the treaty was revised in Bonn in Germany, and what they found out, instead of decreasing the carbon dioxide or the fossil fuel emission, every nation has emitted more of the carbon dioxide. So two clauses were added in Bonn in July 2001. The first clause was, now countries are allowed to subtract from their industrial carbon emission certain increase in carbon sequestered in sinks such as forest and soil. Just I would like to mention is that it says that if you are emitting 100 units of carbon dioxide, say for example, if a country is emitting around 100 units of carbon dioxide, and if the same country is sequestering some amount of carbon in plant biomass or soil biomass, say for example 20 units if they are sequestering into the plant, so that means that country is only emitting 80 units of carbon dioxide. And the second clause was added that countries are allowed to trade emission allowances that can reduce abatement costs. Say for example, if a developed country has they have developed some technologies that can by using that technology, if some development, that amount can be subtracted from the emission of from the developed country. So these two important clause has been added into the Kyoto Protocol in 2001 born in Germany. And from, if you will see the literature from 2000 onwards, there is a flood of research paper on soil carbon sequestration. So now coming to the global carbon budget, you see the total global carbon budget, if you emissions from fossil fuel and the cement production, it is around 7.2 gigaton of carbon every year. The plus sign indicates that we are emitting this much amount of carbon every year. So plus 7.2 means emission from fossil fuel and cement production, it is around 7.2 gigaton of carbon. And the negative signs or the minus sign indicate that much amount we are sequestering. So net ocean to atmospheric plus is minus 2.2 and net land to atmospheric plus is minus 0.9. So around 3.1 gigaton of carbon we are sequestering every year. At the same time, we are emitting around 7.2 gigaton. So our net atmospheric increase is around 4.1 gigaton of carbon every year. That means we are emitting around 4.1 gigaton of carbon every year. The same thing has been depicted by means of carbon flow. You see, it is the atmosphere, and the soil is in equilibrium. Plant and soil, it is in equilibrium. We are emitting around 100 gigaton or petagram of carbon every year. At the same time, we are sequestering around 100 gigaton of carbon every year. Same is the case with the ocean also. Ocean is sequestering more than 100 gigaton of carbon. At the same time, it is emitting. But the problem lies with the coal and the oil and gas, fossil fuel burning. So we are emitting around 7.7 gigaton of carbon every year. So some of the global initiatives to combat this climate change are, you must have heard about the IPCC, then UNFCCC, Kyoto Protocol, and then REDD, that is reducing emissions from deforestation and degradation. These are some global initiatives which was taken to combat the climate change. So now I am coming to 4 per mil concept. This is a newer concept. This concept was launched in France in the year 2015, and more than 150 countries have signed. And it is an international research program. It is an aspirational goal of enhancing carbon stock in world's managed soil by on an average 0.4% every year to the depth of 40 centimeters. What they are saying that class for that. So we are sorry to disturb you. The thing is that 4 per mil concept, what it is saying that if we will be able to increase our carbon stock 40 centimeter of soil, then we will be offsetting the amount of carbon, that is around 4.1 gigaton of carbon what we are emitting into the atmosphere, that can easily be offsetted. So if we can increase our carbon stock by 0.4%, only 0.4% every year, say for example, if our carbon stock is around 1 ton, just I'm giving one example, 1000. So only 4.4 means if we have a carbon stock of 10 tons, so if we'll be able to increase 40 kg of carbon to the depth of 40 centimeters of soil every year, we will be offsetting the global emission of 4.1 gigaton of carbon. So this is the concept in which agriculture is basically emitting around 14% of the greenhouse gases. So agriculture has been given this responsibility to capture some of the amount of carbon dioxide which is present in the atmosphere by means of good management practices. You may be coming from where this figure came, 0.4, just like percentage. When we say percentage, it is per 100. So per 1000 is the per mil. So 4 per 1000, what they assume that our 2 meter of soil depth, it contains around 2400 gigaton of carbon. And if we increase our carbon content by 0.4%, that means 9.6 gigaton. So the annual global emission is around 8.9 gigaton of carbon. So we can easily offset this annual global emission of fossil fuel by just increasing our carbon stock by 0.4% every year. So how can we achieve this? Basically, it can be achieved by adopting conservation agriculture. Definitely, the pasture land, improvement of pasture land and the grassland has got a tremendous capacity. Then the agroforestry system, and also by means of recycling of organic residues. So we have to preserve and restore our soils. At the same time, we need certain government policies so that the farmers or the growers can be benefited by adopting these good management practices. So this, if you want to read more about this 4 per meal concept, you can just click on this. You just browse this website. You will get plenty of information on 4 per meal concept. So now coming to the what are the mechanism of soil carbon sequestration? How carbon is getting stabilized into the soil system? Basically, there are three mechanisms by which carbon is stabilized or sequestered into the soil system. The first one is the physical protection, second one is the chemical stabilization, and third is the biochemical stabilization. You see, let me explain one by one. The biochemical stabilization is nothing, but it's simply the recalcitrance of our organic residues or the plant biomass. You see our inherent recalcitrance. If our plant biomass contains higher amount of tannin or the polyphenols, it will not be easily degraded by the microbes. So the decomposition will be slower. In that case, the stabilization will be higher. This is the biochemical stabilization. Chemical stabilization is nothing, as we all know, our soil organic matter is negatively charged. At the same time, our clay particles are also negatively charged. So what the polyvalent ions do, is polyvalent ions like calcium, iron, or aluminum, they act as a bridge between the soil organic matter and the clay surface. And they are holding this organic matter tightly by the ligand exchange. This is called the chemical stabilization. And physical protection is the encapsulation of organic matter inside the soil aggregate so that microbes could not access to the soil organic matter. The same has the same has been depicted by means of by you see biochemical recalcitrance. As I told you, if the residue or the plant biomass contains higher amount of polyphenols or tannin, it will not be palatable to the microbes. So the microbes will not like it, so they will not decompose it. So the decomposition will be slower, so the stabilization will be higher. In chemical stabilization, it will be strongly held by means of iron or calcium by ligand exchange, so microbes could not easily extract this organic matter from the clay surface. And third is the physical protection. You can see the organic matter is encapsulated from all sides by silt and clay particles. So basically the organic matter is trapped inside the aggregate. So it will not be easily accessible to the microbes. So these are the basically three mechanisms by which carbon is getting stabilized into the soil system. Now coming to the some of the newer concepts that is known as soil carbon saturation. You see, earlier we were thinking that if we go on adding the organic matter to the soil system, the soil carbon content will indefinitely increase. But now it is well proved that a time will come when there will be no further increase in the soil carbon content. This upper level is known as the soil carbon saturation level. It is the level beyond which you cannot increase the soil carbon content. Then what is the significance of this soil carbon saturation concept? You see, if you have two soils in your region, one soil is nearer to soil carbon saturation level and another is far away from the saturation level. So we can see that soil A is having a lesser saturation deficit, whereas soil B is having a higher saturation deficit. So if you have a meager quantity of organic matter, then you allocate your organic matter to the soil which is far away from the saturation level. Higher the saturation deficit, greater will be the chance of soil carbon stabilization. So in order to explain this soil carbon saturation concept, you can think that If you go on adding the input to the soil system, you will see initially the carbon content of the soil will increase, but a time will come when there will be no further increase in the soil carbon content. Say for example, if we are adding 5 tons of carbon FIM every year, we will see that in after 6 to 7 years, there will be no further increase in the carbon content. But at this stage, if we again add 10 tons of carbon every year, we will see that again the carbon content of the soil is increasing. But it doesn't mean that we will go on adding the organic matter and the soil carbon content will indefinitely increase. A time will come, even if you add some amount of carbon, there will be no further increase in the carbon content. That level is known as the saturation level. So, when the carbon content of the soil will increase, the carbon content of soil will only increase if your input is more than the respiration. When we say the respiration, it means the amount of carbon which is emitting from the soil system. The carbon emitting from the soil system are basically coming from three sources. One is the decomposition of organic matter, another is from the microbial respiration, and third is the decomposing organic matter, and the fine root respiration. The roots are also respiring. So if your input is more than the respiration, then the carbon content of soil will increase. When it is equal to respiration, then the carbon content of the soil will be stabilized. This is what we call it as a quasi-equilibrium status. At this stage, if you further add more amount of carbon, then again another quasi-equilibrium state will attain. Soil will attain another quasi-equilibrium state. But this process will not be indefinite. A time will come when there will be no further increase in the soil carbon content. That is known as the soil carbon saturation level. So earlier the concept was there is no such saturation. If there is no saturation, if we are adding 5 tons of carbon, 10 tons of carbon, 20 tons of carbon, or 40 tons of carbon, so we will get another different quasi-equilibrium. And if we will go on plotting on the same soil, we will see there will be linear increase in the carbon content. But now it is well proved that soil has got its upper capacity beyond which you cannot increase the soil carbon content. So even if you go on adding 5 10 10 10 20 10 and 40 10, a time will come there will be no further increase. You can see there is no further increase, it is coming parallel to the x-axis. That means soil has attained its maximum attainable level. But our agriculture soils are mostly far away from the saturation level. You can find saturation level in forest ecosystem or some of the very old grasslands. You can find the saturation level. But in our agriculture soils, they are far away from the saturation level. So how to compute the soil carbon saturation level? In our entire lifespan, we cannot calculate the soil carbon saturation level. There are two ways by which we can do. The one is if we have a long-term fertilizer and manure experimental plot, such as Rothamsted experimental station, which is running since 1850, and by the use of crop simulation model or some soil organic carbon model like Century model or Rossi model, we can find out what is the upper level of our soil carbon content. But there are some empirical equations by which you can easily determine your soil protective capacity or the soil saturation capacity. By using these two equations, one given by Hassink in the year 1997, and another equation was given by Six et al. In 2002. So you say, for example, if our soil contains around, say for example, if our soil contains 75% of silt and clay. I'm just taking an example of Bhopal in Madhya Pradesh. So 75% is the silt and clay content. So if we multiply 75 by 0.29, around 1/3, so it will be coming around 25. So 25 plus 6.9, around 7, so it is coming 32. So 32 gram carbon per kg of soil. That means our soil has a maximum upper saturation level is around 3.2%. But we do not find any of our agriculture soil is having more than 1.5 or 2% of carbon. So generally our agriculture soils are far away from the saturation level. Even if you will use the same equation, another equation, this is given by Six et al. Here silt and clay, if it is 75%, you multiply it by 0.25, it is coming around 15. And 15, if you add 14.76, it is also coming around 3%. So both these equations are coming near to the same level. So by using this simple equation, you can easily find out the soil saturation capacity and the soil productive capacity. And the carbon saturation deficit, you can easily calculate by 1 minus soil organic carbon content. What is the present soil organic carbon content divided by the productive capacity, what we have estimated from this equation. But here, what we are telling about the soil carbon, that is the total carbon content, not the Barclay black carbon content. So when we say Barclay black carbon content, it is only the oxidizable carbon content. But this equation has been developed for total carbon content. So now we will be talking about what are the different situations of carbon sequestration. Now some new terminology is being used as a in soil carbon sequestration. The actual level is nothing. What is the carbon content present in the soil? What is the present carbon content of soil, which is we are saying the actual carbon content. Nowadays, people are not talking about the potential. People are talking about the what is the attainable carbon content. How much we can attain. Potential could be very high, but every soil cannot attain its potential because potential depends upon so many other climatic factors. Say, for example, when we say the potential of soil could be very high, but if your climate, if your rainfall is very less and your net primary productivity is poor, then how can you attain your potential? It is just like that. Everybody cannot lift 300 kg of weight. We have got a potential to lift around 300 kg of weight, but we need a training sort of thing, training or dietary requirement, and so many things are that. The similar is the case with the soil also. Soil has got a tremendous potential, but every soil cannot attain its potential. So now people are talking mostly about the attainable carbon content, how much we can attain, and it depends. It is governed by net primary productivity and the climate of that region. So these are the change of land use impact on the soil carbon sequestration. You see, if we are deviating from forest land use system or shifting from forest land use system to agricultural land use system, we see there is a tremendous decrease in the soil carbon content. But at any moment of time, if we are adopting some good management practices like conservation agriculture, biochar, or agroforestry system, or desert control, afforestation, then we again see there is further increase in the carbon content of the soil. So what we are saying that now there is no need to go for the determination of what is the potential of soil carbon sequestration. If we can achieve what is the attainable potential, then we can modify our agriculture practices so that we can attain our attainable carbon content of the soil. So we have devised a simpler ready reckoner, a model sort of thing, in which we have collected samples from different agroecological regions of the country, and then we have simplified how to determine the maximum attainable carbon content. So you just need to have two information: what is the silt and clay content of the soil, and what is the rainfall of your region. So in this column, you see there is a rainfall, and in this row, you can see there is a silt and increase in the silt and clay content. I'm taking just example of, say for example, Bhopal. Bhopal is having a silt and clay content around 75%, and we have rainfall around 12%. So our maximum attainable carbon content, this is Barclay black carbon content. So we can attain a carbon content of 1.1%. So depending upon your rainfall and silt and clay content, you can easily find out what is the maximum attainable carbon content of the soil. Now coming to site and what is the turnover rate. You see, when we work upon the soil carbon sequestration, just a minute. लगता मैं आपको फोन कर रहा हूँ, एक मीटिंग चल रही है, मैं थोड़ा मीटिंग खत्म करने के बाद Yeah, this is the size and the turnover. You see, we are estimating different forms of carbon in the soil. Sometimes we are measuring dissolved organic carbon, sometimes we are measuring particulate organic matter, sometimes, but they have got different turnover time. These are basically the dissolved organic matter. It has got a size less than 45 micrometers, and it has a mean residence time or turnover time of around minutes to days. So it will vanish in few days. Particulate organic carbon content, it can remain in soil for 2 to 50 years, whereas humus, it has a decadal time scale, and resistant organic matter from hundred to thousands of years, it can remain in the soil system. So now coming to the soil carbon pools. What are the different carbon? When we are estimating carbon in the soil, say for example, if we estimate a carbon of a soil and we found it is 1%. In this 1%, the carbon is allocated in different carbon pools. Some part of the carbon will be in active pool, some part will be in the slow pool, and some part will be the in resistant pool. Then active pool has a mean residence time of few days to few months. Then slow pool is having few years to 10 years, and the resistant pool is having a mean residence time of hundred to thousands of years. Then you may ask how to determine these carbon pools. We are generally determining carbon in our lab. Just simply we are measuring the total carbon content or the Wachlet lab carbon content. But we are not estimating the amount of carbon in different carbon pools. So we need to, if you want to identify or you want to determine the amount of carbon in different carbon pools, then you have to conduct a long-term carbon mineralization study. So you conduct a carbon mineralization study, then you monitor the evolution of carbon dioxide periodically. Say for example, on what is the carbon evolution on 0 day, 2 day, 4 day, 8 days, 16 days, 30 days, like that up to 6 months, 4 to 6 months, you carry the long-term carbon mineralization study. Then whatever the amount of carbon which have evolved over a period of time, you partition this carbon into the two carbon pools. One is the active carbon pool, and another is the slow carbon pool by using this double decomposition reaction. You see, this is the first order reaction. What is the first order reaction? You see, it is totally depending upon the concentration of the substance, and Ct is the amount of carbon, total carbon. Ca is the amount of carbon in active pool. Exponential is the exponential. K is the decay constant of active pool, and T is the time. So by using this equation in non-linear regression equation, you can determine the amount of carbon in active and slow pool by using some of the statistical software like SPSS or SAS. You see, determination of carbon pool itself will take around more than 30 to 45 minutes of time. So I'm not going much in detail what we are doing. When first we are estimating the total carbon content of the soil, then we are determining how much amount of carbon is present in the resistant pool. For determining carbon in resistant pool, what we are doing, we are taking 1 gram of soil in nitrogen in Geldal tube. In Geldal tube, nitrogen digestion tube, you must be aware, some of you must be aware of the nitrogen digestion tube. In that we are taking 1 gram of soil. First we are determining the total carbon content. Then we are putting 6 normal HCl, 25 ml of 6 normal HCl. Then we are heating the sample at 110 degrees centigrade for 18 hours. After 18 hours, we are refluxing the soil with water for several times till the sample is free from the chloride. Then we are determining the amount of carbon which is left in the soil by using the CHN or TOC analyzer. So we can determine the amount of carbon in resistant pool. We know the total carbon content. Now we know the resistant carbon content. If you subtract resistant carbon from total carbon, you will get the amount of carbon in, the remaining carbon is the amount of carbon in active plus slow pool. But we are not knowing how much amount of carbon is present in active pool and how much carbon is present in slow pool. So what we are doing, we are conducting a long-term carbon mineralization study, and by using this non-linear regression equation, by using some of the statistical software like SPSS and SAS, we can determine the amount of carbon in active pool as well as the slow pool. Now coming to the implication and what are the benefits of soil carbon sequestration. As I told you earlier that when we are sequestering or when we are increasing the carbon content of the soil, basically we are improving the soil quality. I must say soil carbon is the master indicator of soil health. If carbon is good, you assume rest all the parameters will be good. If your soil contains higher amount of carbon, higher means if it contains more than 1.5% of carbon, you assume your soil fertility will be better, water holding capacity will be better, micronutrient availability will be better, and crop can withstand the extreme weather condition. So increasing soil carbon
Sir, sorry,
sequestration, yeah,
resume presenting again. Somebody started. Can you resume presenting on the presentation? Can you resume presenting?
okay, okay. So is it okay? Now it is okay?
Yes, sir, it's fine.
Okay, okay.
It's
So
fine.
what I was telling that increasing carbon content in soil has got numerous ancillary benefits. It's a very good indicator for soil fertility. At the same time, if your carbon content is high, your soil physical property will be better. At the same time, it's all your biological properties, because all the heterotrophs, they need carbon as a source for their energy. So you increase carbon content, you rest assured everything will be better in your soil. So soil has, as told you, it has got numerous ancillary benefits. It improves. I'm not going again and again about the physical properties will be improved, chemical properties will be improved, all the biological properties will be improved, and it has got other ecological functions. What I told you in the beginning, that all entire amount of nitrogen transformation is governed by soil organic matter. Around 15 to 80% of phosphorus transformation is governed by soil organic matter. At the same time, around 60 to 80% of sulfur transformation in soil is carried out by soil organic matter. So definitely your productivity will increase, and also it will improve your soil quality, and at the same time your crops, and it can withstand adverse weather condition also. So how to enhance carbon sequestration? As I told you beginning, the carbon content of your soil will only increase if your input is more than your output. Here input is carbon and output is your carbon dioxide. In other words, we can say that decomposition. So if your carbon input is more than your decomposition rate, then the carbon content of your soil will increase. So these are the different means by which we can increase our soil carbon content. One is the restoration of the degraded land. I can tell you the soil which is having a lesser carbon content, the chances of increasing carbon content will be much higher. So if you have got two types of soil, one has got a lower carbon content, and another has got a higher carbon content. So you apply your meager organic resources to the soil which contains lesser amount of carbon. So in that soil, the chances of carbon establishment will be much higher. The second option is the reduced tillage or the conservation agriculture. You go and adopt the conservation agriculture. When we say the conservation agriculture, it has got three pillars. One is the minimum soil disturbance, second is the residue retention, and third is the crop rotation. So you follow the principle of conservation agriculture, definitely the carbon content of your soil will improve. So by growing the cover crops or increasing your cropping intensity, by improving your nitrogen use efficiency, residue management, and by adding some organic amendments, you can increase your soil carbon content. So I am not going much in detail about the reduced tillage. You are very much aware that when we are exposing our soils by means of tillage, so what happens? The carbon which is present in the soil gets oxidized. So when we are adopting reduced tillage or minimum tillage or no tillage, then there is a lesser chance of carbon oxidation. So the carbon depletion is restricted when we are adopting the reduced tillage or no tillage practices. So residue management, that is it is generally said that grain is meat for the human being. At the same time, straw is meat for the soil. So we must have to give the due share to everyone, the grower as well as the soil. So you return the soil to you return the straw to the soil, the carbon content of your soil will increase. So how can you decrease the decomposition? Decomposition is carried out by the microbes. We cannot have much control over them. So what we can do that if we adopt the principle of conservation agriculture, since only a part of your residue will be in contact with the soil surface, so the chances of decomposition will be slower. In that case, the carbon stabilization will be higher. So by this adoption of these practices, we can increase the soil carbon sequestration. So qualitatively, you can judge whether your soil is having a higher carbon sequestration potential with relation to climate or low. So this in the x-axis you see it is the temperature, and in the right on the y-axis it is the moisture. If you have got a cooler on x-axis we are moving from cooler to a hotter climate, and on the y-axis we are moving from drier to wetter climate. So if your soil, if you are having a cooler climate, at the same time you are having a high rainfall, the chances of carbon sequestration is very high. But if you are having a cooler climate but the rainfall is less, then the chances of carbon sequestration is medium. But if you are having a hot climate but at the same time you are getting a plenty of rainfall, then also the chances of carbon sequestration is medium. But if you have a hotter climate, at the same time you have a less amount of rainfall, then the chances of carbon stabilization will be much low. So, but qualitatively you can judge whether your soil falls in which quadrant. So these are the potential of different agriculture practices. You see, by good management practices like crop rotation or growing perennial crops, we can sequester around 0.88 tons of carbon dioxide. Here it is in terms of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. By following the integrated nutrient management or improved nutrient management, we can sequester around 0.55 tons, around 0.55 ton of carbon dioxide every per hectare every year. And by adoption of minimal and no tillage also, we can sequester around 0.5 ton of carbon, by around 500 kg of carbon dioxide every year. And by means of agroforestry, also we can sequester around 0.5 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare per year. But you can see by land cover change, if you shift from agriculture cropland to native vegetation or grassland, it has got a tremendous potential. We can, if we move from cropland to native vegetation or native vegetation, that means it is the forest land or the grassland, we can sequester around 3 tons of carbon dioxide per hectare every year. So finally, coming to what are the factors which are affecting the carbon sequestration in soil. So I already discussed, higher the carbon input, higher will be the soil carbon sequestration. The second is the initial carbon stock. As I told you earlier, if your soil is at a lower carbon content, then the chances of carbon stabilization will be much higher. Temperature, we have already discussed that lower the temperature, higher is the chances of carbon. Regarding clay content, if your soil, clay is the master variable in terms of carbon sequestration. If your soil contains a higher amount of clay, the chances of carbon stabilization will be much higher. No doubt, water content, tillage, and CN ratio of soil, they are also very much influencing the soil. Tillage, we put question mark because if we adopt conservation tillage or no tillage, there is a chance of higher carbon stabilization. So these are the different soil orders. The chances of carbon stabilization is very high in case of vertisol, and it is in alfisol, the chances is somewhat less, and in insectisol or alluvial soils, the carbon sequestration rate is much lesser in comparison to vertisol. These are some of the works what I did some of the work in USA, also as some of the work in Australia on conservation agriculture, and we found that wherever people are adopting the no tillage content, the carbon content is fairly high. Also, you can see one practice is stubble burning, another is the stubble retention. The CN ratio also we've observed. This is the recalcitrant carbon. Don't confuse with the total carbon. It is the recalcitrant carbon or the charcoal carbon content was fairly high wherever the people are burning the crop residue. And wherever we are adopting the stubble burning, the CN ratio of the soil was higher. So it is not good. It's always the lesser the CN ratio, higher will be their nutrient availability. This is the mineralizable carbon content. You can see the mineralizable carbon content is fairly high wherever we are retaining the residues. And as we go on increasing the nitrogen content, nitrogen application to the soil, there is the increase in the mineralizable carbon content. So this is the metabolic quotient. It is higher under the stable burning. Metabolic quotient is basically soil respiration per unit of microbial biomass. It shows that wherever we are burning the crop residue, the microbes are under stress. So higher the metabolic quotient means poor is the soil quality. So wherever we are burning the stubbles, the soil quality is poor in comparison to the soils where we are retaining the residues. So these are the nitrogen mineralization. You can see wherever we are retaining stubble is retained, we are retaining the stubbles. The nitrogen mineralization is fairly high. Wherever we are applying the nitrogenous fertilizer, higher the nitrogenous fertilizer, higher is the nitrogen mineralization rate. We also estimated is the extractable glomalin. These are some of the research work. We found that retention of residue improve the extractable glomalin content in the soil. At the same time, we saw that retention of residue along with nitrogen application significantly improved is the extractable glomalin content in soil. We found a very good relationship between the easily extractable glomalin and mineralization. So we are saying that easily extractable glomalin could be one of the indicators of nitrogen availability in soil. This is about the relationship between the total organic carbon and available nitrogen. You see, we have got a very poor relationship between the total organic carbon and available nitrogen. But when we are estimating the carbon by amount of carbon in active pool plus slow pool and the amount of carbon and the available nitrogen, the relationship is very good. So basically, nitrogen dynamics is soil is governed by the active plus slow pool, not by the recalcitrant pool. This is the same thing which has, we have worked on some of the sites in India, Jabalpur, Palampur, Ranchi, and we observed that wherever we are applying the FIM, there is tremendous increase in the resistant pool of soil organic carbon. So recommended management practices already we have covered. So I think we have covered most of the things. So finally, we are concluding that atmospheric carbon level increases mainly due to anthropogenic activity. So if we have to adopt this conservation agriculture or minimum disturbance of soil, expanding the soil of terrestrial sink is inevitable. Synergy between the mitigation and adaptation is to be maintained. These are some of the very important things. So if you want soil carbon sequestration, your gains should weigh more than your losses. So how to increase the carbon content? We have to apply crop residue, root biomass. We have to adopt cover crops. We have to apply compost or biochar, and we have to minimize erosion, leaching of nutrients, as well as the decomposition process. So when the soil carbon depletion will take place, when losses is more than the gain. That means if erosion, leaching, and decomposition is more than your residue addition and compost application and root biomass, then the carbon content of the soil will decline. So we have to, so the only way is to reducing emission from all land. This is all about my presentation. Thank you very much everyone for your present hearing. Thank you.
Anyone with questions? Sir may be here to answer them. Any questions for sir?
It means when nobody is asking anything, there are two meanings. One, that whatever I said, everyone has understand whatever the things I told. Okay, the second thing is that I have not told in the proper manner so that nothing has been retained by the audience. So what I should assume? I know every one of you are not working in the field of soil carbon, but those who are working in the field of soil carbon, they may ask if you